Hey, boring, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite movies, and today I'm going to do another movie review. Oh my god, another movie review? Another movie review? Come on, man. Come on, man. I'm gonna do a review on Il Conformista. I'm sorry if I butchered the Italian, or in English, The Conformist. Directed by Bernardo Bertolucci. Yeah, so in case you haven't noticed, by the end of every single month, I'm going to review three classic movies. Three movies that had held cultural significance in the history of cinema. And in January, I reviewed No Country for Old Men by the Coen brothers, Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, and then Memories of Murder by Bong Joon-ho. And you can pretty much see the pattern that I'm gonna review one long and artistic and very well known classic movie, and then one more artsy and inaccessible classic movie, and another movie that is way more accessible and super underrated. And so, after reviewing Kill Bill Volume 1 and Goodfellas, you know what kind of movie I'm going to review next. An inaccessible, artsy movie that is also a classic. And this time, it's going to be The Conformist. I decided to watch this movie even though I don't know much about this movie. I saw this movie being mentioned a couple times in some videos. When Bernardo Bertolucci passed away, my very, very cultured Chinese teacher back in Form 6 actually talked about him, saying, wow, one of the greatest Italian directors of all times just passed away, which is really shocking. And nobody in our class knew who is that. Nobody knew who's that, except for me. But I've only heard of his name, because to be fair, I'm not that much of a film connoisseur. There are still many movies that I haven't watched, but I've heard of the guy's name, and my Chinese teacher was like, "Oh my God, he passed away. That is, that's really sad." So Bernardo Bertolucci, he's also responsible for the movie The Last Emperor, which is funny because it's a autobiographical movie. Well, it's adapted from an autobiography written by Pu Yi, literally the last dude who became the emperor of the Qing dynasty, and the guy who directed the movie is Italian, which is a little funny, a little. But anyways, back to The Conformist. This movie is also adapted from a novel of the same name, written nearly 21 years before the release of this film. So basically, the main character is Clerici Marcello, and he is a guy who really wants to. Also, by the way, the story is set in 1938, and he is an Italian, and he wants to join the fascist party secret police. And in order to do that, he needs to prove himself. So he was ordered to assassinate his former professor, who fled Italy after Italy became a fascist country. And he is an anti fascist, obviously. So the fascists told Marcello to assassinate the anti-fascist, essentially. But Marcello, in the first half of the movie, actually, and throughout the entire movie, actually, he's kind of an asshole. He's kind of a meanie. He's selfish. He only thinks for himself, and he doesn't care about other people's feelings and thoughts usually. And the thing with him is that he's also really weak minded, which means that he would conform to a thing really easily, like when fascism is a huge thing in Italy. Like he would just conform to fascism then. And yeah, when he was sent to Paris alongside with his wife to see his former professor and assassinate him, he actually had second thoughts. He hesitated, he didn't know what to do, and he kind of conformed to another situation again. So, the conformist. Now, Let's get the elephant out of the room. Let's address the elephant of the room. I, I don't know. The best thing about this movie is easily the cinematography. The aesthetics of this movie is absolutely hypnotizing and surreal. The DP is the one and only Vittorio Storaro, who actually worked with Wes Anderson on the Grand Budapest Hotel. Yes, this is the Vittorio Storaro, and this movie looks gorgeous. It looks gorgeous. The very eccentric and off-centered composition, the very beautiful and majestic use of the white color, as well as other colors as well. It's not a very colorful movie, but it's just really well composed, especially that shot in the mental asylum place, which is really memorable. Another shot that I really, really love. Actually, there are a lot of really great shots in this thing. There's an entire scene that looks really beautiful towards the beginning of the movie where it's all shadows and windows, and it's just light play and shadow play. It's just gorgeous, man. It's gorgeous. There's also a lot of symbolic imagery in this movie, like when Marcello met with his former professor and he closed the windows, and for some reason his shadow became more apparent after he closed the window, and then when the professor reopened the window, his shadow kind of disappears, which is kind of symbolic. And that's not the only symbolic part visually in this movie. The story itself. Now, this is where we run into a bit of a problem, because this movie is not accessible. It's not. It's not accessible. If you think this movie is going to be a very suspenseful thriller, you're going to be disappointed, because it's actually a really slow-paced, very indulging movie with a lot of dialogues, and it's not gonna be everybody's cup of tea. Now, for me, I certainly was not that entertained by this movie, and I thought the romantic elements of this movie was a little bit confusing because it wasn't tying to the overall theme or plot of this movie, and it's just really confusing in general, because now Marcello and his own wife went to Paris to visit the former professor and his wife. Now, the professor's wife started hitting on Marcello. And then Marcello was like, okay, I love you, but what are you doing? And then the professor's wife started hitting on Marcello's wife. And then at some point, Marcello's wife got drunk, and Marcello's wife started hitting on the professor. It's like, it's a mess. It's a mess. But the romantic elements didn't matter at the end anyways, because the fascist party is going to do whatever they want to do. So, you know how the story kind of ended, I guess. Another thing about this movie that's more about Marcello's character and his psychology rather than the overall political theme of this movie, and that is his childhood trauma. How he experienced something really traumatic back in the days, back when he was young. Really disgusting as well, really bold for a novel written in the 1950s to write about themes like this, really bold. But he experienced some childhood trauma, and that trauma almost kind of came back to him. I forgot to mention that this movie doesn't shy away from comedy as well. There are a few scenes, there are a few shots in this film that are actually a little bit funny. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I guess that made the movie a little bit more entertaining than I have just described it to be. So overall, I didn't enjoy this movie as much as I wanted to. The story and the pace of this film is a little bit slow and indulging. I guess not in a way it's like a slow movie, more like there are all these other scenes that don't necessarily tie into the overall theme of this movie. The cinematography is brilliant. There's one scene where everyone's dancing, and then suddenly everyone just started dancing around Marcello, and Marcello's like really awkward, trying to get out, but he can't. That was a brilliant shot. That is also really symbolic because the people are surrounding him and he didn't know what to do. He's like, oh my god, I'm trapped. I guess I just have to conform. But yeah, I will have to watch this movie. Maybe it'll grow on me. Maybe. But I have to rewatch it. So I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. I'm saying The Conformist is movie worth watching, and I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Yay! So, have you watched The Conformist from 1 to 10? How much did you rate it? Like it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.